Hey everyone, welcome to Eternal Brews. My name is Pojo, and today we are looking at a really fun, really silly deck that I built a while back using Martial Ironthorn, which we call Ironthorn Impossible. And the idea behind this deck is we are building a slow four-faction control type deck that tries to outgreed the most greedy control decks out there. And it's a ton of fun. It's just a really great time. I really enjoy this deck a lot, and I wanted to share it with you because it's been a crazy amount of fun to play. It's been doing okay on the ladder, not so good recently because there's been a huge influx of Bandit Queen decks and Obliterate decks, and decks that just sort of like can deal with that like slow control archetype pretty well. But I've actually had decent success with it in the tournament scene, where the meta has slowed down a lot and people are trying to play a lot of like slower control decks, that kind of thing. So that's sort of where this kind of deck shines, and that's basically what we're aiming for when we built around it. That being said, we keep a decent amount of anti-aggro in here, and let's just go down the list and talk about how it works. So the key card here is, of course, Martial Ironthorn, 5/5 for 5, that when you empower it allows you to play an additional copy of that power. That works for special effects as well, such as A New Tomorrow, which is kind of a fun, important part of the deck. And then, of course, he has his ultimate of pay 15 to kill all enemy units, which is extremely good if you can get to it, but you'll almost never see that happen. Ironthorn is very important in this deck because what we are doing is we are running a 4-color deck that has a lot of 10 drops. Namely A New Tomorrow, Dimensional Rift, and occasionally Scourge of Frostholm. And we are trying to fix for as much power as possible early on, play down Ironthorn, and accelerate into that 8 and 9 and 10 drop slot. And then just play those cards out and do some really wacky, fun, wonderful things that are just full of greed and delightfulness. So that's the basic goal. To that end, we have quite a bit of end game related stuff, but before we get into that, of course, there's the basic core that we have to go down. We have Lightning Storm to defend ourselves early, Desert Marshal to silence big threats and also give us a little bit more defense against Aegis stuff. I'm running 2 Levitates in this version. There will be a different version up that does not run these, but I found that with the Rakano meta, I wanted a few more Levitates in here, and Levitates also help with another card in the deck, which is Cabal Mastermind, which we'll be talking about in just a second. Beyond that, we use Knight Chancellor Seraph as a really nice, simple block in the early game, and then we have Harsh Rules at 5, Feeding Time at 4, and once we've got all of this done, we run into stuff like Black Sky Harbinger and Dimensional Rift to clear up the board in later board states where things are getting really out of hand. But that's what we're trying to do to keep the game under control until we can get Ironthorn down, and then we can start getting into our super, super late game. Once we're in our super, super late game, we have a lot of amusing, fun things that we can do. First off, Dimensional Rift is probably the strongest card in this particular matchup. It is a 10-cost card that costs 2 blue influence and 2 purple influence, and if you can make that happen, it tends to be around 6 for 1 card advantage. It kills 2 random enemy units, stuns 2 other ones, which usually doesn't happen. Usually you just clear 2 units off the board if you're playing a deck like this, because you already have the board pretty well clear by the time you're ready to cast Dimensional Rift. It draws 2 random units from the Void, which are almost always useful units like Ironthorn or Seraph, and then it also draws you 2 cards. So as far as things go, it's the cruel ultimatum of the Eternal world. If you're not familiar with Magic, this is like the big, splashy, fun card that people really never get to play because it's just a little too expensive for most control decks to run. But in this deck, it's amazing, and it's one of the key cards for getting all of our gas going after we have played out all of our seeking and all of our other stuff to get ourselves set up. This just basically puts us in a position to win any game that we want. And once we're in that position, there's a second card, of course, that allows us to do that, which is A New Tomorrow. Plays the top 12 power from our deck depleted. This card usually gets us up to around 25 power. If we're playing with Martial Ironthorn, all 12 of those power are copied, and as a result, we get ourselves something like, 36 to 38 power. It can be a little more than that even. And this is, of course, really special if you want to just do absolutely crazy things. And if you have a lot of good places to sink power, such as Marshal Ironthorn's ultimate, Knight Chancellor Seraph's ability, and of course, just doing stuff like Dimensional Rift and then casting all of the cards that you've drawn off of Dimensional Rift. In addition, A New Tomorrow makes sure that every card that we draw is no longer a power. You can still hit Secret Power and Seek Power and Secret pages, but overall, like, this card means that you are always going to be drawing something relevant to your turn, which means that once you and your opponent go into top deck mode, you're always going to be the winner in that situation. Now, to seal up the game, we have a couple of different options, all of which are fun, some of which are anti-control, some of which are a bit more focused on killing people in different ways. We have The Last Word, of course. The Last Word is a pretty common final card for a control deck, which is Deadly Quick Draw. It will always kill at least one unit as a removal spell, because that Deadly Quick Draw ability means that it's generally just going to be threatening if your opponent only has one unit on the board. But if you pay the ultimate for it to make the Last Word's attack deadly to players, then you can use it as your finisher for the game. And if you've played a lot of power off of cards like A New Tomorrow, the Last Word is something that you can play as a surprise and ultimate it to give it deadly to players and kill your opponent with it before he can respond to it. I have played several games where I've been able to Harsh Rule into the Last Word and then ultimate, and that's the kind of like super fun combo that we're looking for when we're playing a deck like this. We also have Cabal Mastermind and Accelerate as our only 2-card combo that's that we're actively searching for. So Accelerate into Cabal Mastermind gives us, of course, a 3/3 that can steal the enemy player's hand with charge. And we do this basically as a surprise. It's a very uncommon card to be seen in standard play, so people often don't prepare for it very well. And if we can get this card across, we steal the entire enemy player's hand. That kind of card swing is simply unstoppable if we can get a hold of the opponent's hand. And of course we get to play pretty much all of the cards out of their hand because we're going to have a lot of power and a lot of extra stuff off of Marshal Ironthorn. So this is, the big fun set card in the deck, and you can also do some stuff with it, like play it down to threaten your opponent and force them to think twice about attacking. You can use Accelerate on cards like Black Sky Harbinger or on cards like Ironthorn to get like a final point of lethal if you're in a lot of trouble. You can play these cards slightly inefficiently to do some things to just make sure that your board is like a little bit in an okay state if you just need to stabilize. But for the most part, what we're trying to do is we're trying to just steal the opponent's hand, because stealing the opponent's hand is just the most fun thing that you can do. To that extent, we run 2 Celestial Omens, and the Celestial Omens are used to pick combo pieces or particular finishers out of our deck. We can also use them for some other problems, like, for example, we have 1 Decay in the deck if we get a Zindel's Gift on us, and Celestial Omening for Decay tends to be a super effective way to just, make sure that we don't have that happen. However, if someone's casting a Zindel's Gift on us and we have 6 power up, we can also Celestial Omen for Mistveiled Drake, which gives us an Aegis and automatically basically counters any spell that's aimed directly at our face. This is a pretty solid way to keep your control deck defended, and I think it's a really good one-of in any deck that runs enough Omens. We're only running 2 Omens. The main reason for that is because we have a sizable amount of 9 and 10 drops, and therefore Celestial Omen tends to be yet another card in hand that can be dead in an aggro situation. I really like running 4 Omens in this deck. I think it's super powerful if you're running against a control matchup, but if you're running against anything that has any level of aggression, then Celestial Omen's not going to be a very good card for that reason, and as a result we had to keep the numbers on that a little bit limited. We run Black Sky Harbinger as a one-of. You can run as many as 4 of these, since they're fairly reliable cards that you can play to pop Aegises, to kill aggro decks, and to just get you back a little bit of the health that you lose in the early game setting up. I think this card is quite strong in different numbers if you want to play around with that. And of course, like, as far as the legendary base goes, you can mix and match. You can change things around. If you're running a deck that runs Marshal Ironthorn and you have the secret pages and the seek powers and other options like that, Ironthorn can get a lot of interesting things done. And I encourage people to try that out and experiment with it, because there are just a ton of different ways that you can play around with this deck. Beyond that, Wisdom of the Elders for card draw, Push Onwards as our primary method of seeking out particular answers and particular cards like Ironthorn when we need them. Seraph, of course, once a new Tomorrow has gone off, or once Ironthorn has gone off, is just an amazing card to play down with like 11 power or something like that, where you can just put her down and you can put a bunch of units on the board immediately. She's super effective for securing the game late, and she happens to interact well with our cards like Dimensional Rift. We run Scourge of Frostome in this particular version. In the version that I have, there will be a version of this up on RNG Eternal, and I am doing an article that describes this deck in detail. In that version, we are running a Zindil's Gift, which is also a solid way to answer many control decks. But I kind of decided that I wanted to go for like a Battlecry version here, just for fun purposes, and also like I just really like the card. This is a really solid finisher that can shut down a lot of decks, not just control decks. It can be very, very difficult for people to get past. All right. So that's the basics of the deck. Let's go into a couple of games and sort of show how it works. All right, so we have double seat here. And what we're generally looking for is yeah, we actually have all 4 colors. We generally just need yellow, blue, and green to get started. This hand is a little awkward because we don't actually have the double green for Harsh Rule or the double blue for Wisdom of the Elders. But I think the 3 power here is good enough to keep, especially when we have a pretty good start on being able to hit Wisdom of the Elders into whatever it is that we actually need. Alright, my opponent's playing a Jito deck, so it's mighty fine of us that we have Lightning Storm available. I'm going to play the Seed of Progress out first and hide the fact that I have blue for at least 1 turn. Perfect. We got him to overplay into what he thought was a Combre hand, and now we get to Lightning Storm and kill 3 of his units. So that's a really good start for us. Next we have Seed of Order. That's going to set up Wisdom of the Elders, although we might have to Desert Marshal to defend ourselves. Looks like we're okay for now. That initial Lightning Storm is going to set us up really well against the Jito deck. It's going to be pretty hard for him to recover from that. I'll just Wisdom here. I think we should probably silence that unit. It's just not reasonable to leave it alive and hope that he doesn't hit a 5th power. I have access to Decay now, and I also have Harsh Rule, which is a pretty good deal for me. The Torch comes out. My opponent's almost out of gas. He's actually playing Bandit Queen into this. So this is likely that Queen deck with Burn. And it'd be good to get our hands on some sort of life gain if we can. But at the very least, we have to clear out this board. Okay. Grabbing Ironthorn is a pretty good start here. But I don't like my options that well. We'll grab a purple here, play Ironthorn down, and play Seraph as well. Now we can generate our own units. That's going to be a pretty substantial help. Obviously we need to block here, and we might still get burned out. Nothing yet. I think taking even 1 point of damage puts us in torch range, which is really not ideal for us. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to grab either Seraph or that Seat. I think we'll grab this Seraph. We're going to attack for 3. And we're going to Harsh Rule that board. That should put us in decent shape. We can still get Flame Blasted out by Stonescar Burn, but we're getting much closer to a reasonable setup. Knifejack here doesn't do a lot for him. I'm just going to generate a unit, and we'll pass the turn. There's another unit for him. Black Sky Harbinger is the card I need here. This defends me pretty well and puts me in a much better position against this deck. Having 3 extra health here is going to be very important. Okay, there are a couple of ways that we can play this. I think the one I like is Dimensional Rift. That keeps my side of the board intact and sets me up in a slightly better position against Champion of Chaos, which is a card that I really can't deal with right now. Another option includes The Last Word, which is definitely playable here. Puts me at 5. Yeah, alright. We'll play The Last Word here. That gets rid of Champion of Chaos. Cleans up the Jito deck a little bit, and we're in a very good position to Dimensional Rift next turn. Or whatever turn we like. Okay, cool. So now, I want to play Black Sky Harbinger first, because I'm trying to make sure that I don't die to a Flame Blast, of course. We'll kill that. And we got him. Good times. Good times. Okay. So, yeah. Alright. So we got a good starting hand. It's got the necessary colors. It doesn't have double green, which is a little bit worrisome, but everything else about that looks okay. Knight Chancellor Seraph is a good first turn play. We have Accelerate into Cabal Mastermind, which is kind of cute. Yeah. There's some stuff that we can do with this. I think I'm going to Accelerate right now. It's not likely to be a particularly relevant play, but there's a chance that on 7, that's going to be my turn, so I'd be pretty excited to set that up. Alright. Knight Chancellor Seraph's fine here. This deck is likely a Beast Colors Amulet type situation. Definitely looks like it. I'm going to push onward here. Grab hold of that Desert Marshal so that we can block the Dawnwalker. Nice. Got a 2-for-1 there. That's going to help us out quite a bit. It's a pretty solid swing to start. Celestial Omen's really helpful here. We can start grabbing purple now that we have all of the other colors squared away. Our color pairings are we need 2 influence in each of these 3 and then 3 shadow influence. But we always pick shadow last because all of our shadow cards are late game cards. Alright, so Cabal Mastermind seems like a pretty good play if we can actually make it happen. I'm going to go ahead and end my turn here. We'll see if we can set up a Harsh Rule or something along those lines. There are a lot of different good options. He's actually attacking all in here. And he used to Stand Together. So life's looking pretty good for us. Except for the part where he's actually got a huge board advantage. But the rest of this is pretty great, right? So we start turn, play our power, Cabal Mastermind charges in, and we get his hand. And now we just have to live for a couple of turns. Looks like he's got his own Iron Thorns. Oh, he's got Sandstorm Titan. That's perfect. That should put us in a pretty good position. Okay, so I'm at 9. Life's pretty hard on that front. Go ahead and seek power here. Grab a purple. We'll play down Sandstorm Titan. I probably don't want to play Argenport Instigator here. Lightning Storm doesn't seem that bad, but little ambivalent about it. Yeah, I think we should wait on the Lightning Storm until we have everything ready. Instigator maybe is the right card here. Double Instigators puts us in some health troubles, but we need to actually secure the board a little better than we've currently got it. Now we'll pass. Our situation looks okay. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of damage here. Start our turn. Lightning Storm. Let's go ahead and play down Ironthorn and a Justice Sigil. And now I've got Desert Marshal to silence that Dawnwalker, which I might just want to do right now. Yeah, that seems appropriate, since if it dies and comes back, it'll have the Aegis again, so let's just set up the board, make sure we're in a good position. Okay, so I'm going to go for this play, because it's funny. Cabal Mastermind, Levitate. And I want your hand again. Oh, but I've got Sandstorm Titan, so that was dumb. I should have noticed. My bad. He let it through. No particular reason to do that I can think of, but I guess we're all just having fun here. Alright, well played. The other option there was to Forbidden Lore for a Dimensional Rift, and then just clear up the board. But yeah, we got his hand, so there you go. That's the game we're after. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. There's a lot of different ways that you can fiddle with this deck and play around with the idea. You don't have to go nearly as greedy as we went. There are very, very simple versions of this deck that work very, very well, and the Combrei Ramp archetype is quite strong. For example, here's a really stupid one that we're working on for just dealing with the current, like, extremely Obliterate and Flame Blast heavy meta. We're running Copper Conduits and Force Fields and Healer's Cloaks, and we're just trying to create super huge units that are immune to weapons so they can deal with stuff like Ikaria Blue and other things like that. It's a dumb deck, but yeah, like, basically, have fun with this. There's a lot of different ways that Marshal Ironthorn can create, like, some really entertaining and fun decks for you to play. A lot of other fun, greedy cards that we can talk about, so let's go ahead and talk about just a couple of them before we finish up. One that isn't in the list that's in our RNG list is Spell Swipe, which is a pretty solid card if you have infinite amounts of mana to work with. Let's not add a Predator's Instinct in there. So Spell Swipe is a counterspell that costs 5 power. It's super effective at getting rid of, like, Channel the Tempests and outgreeding your opponent in that respect. You can run Azindil's Gift, of course. That's a super solid card. I recommend Black Sky Harbingers. If you want to go heavier on the control archetypes, you can move a little further into the 4F control and run things like Withering Witch and Black Sky Harbingers in higher numbers, and you'll get some value out of that. Even Snowcrush Animist is actually a pretty reasonable card, especially with the current meta going on. So, like, that kind of, like, late-game purple-blue stuff is pretty good. If you want to go deeper into Elysian cards, you can set up some really interesting stuff with Gemini Ritual and Westwind Herald if you're running a lot of 10-drops, because Westwind Herald really, really loves 10-drops. And that'll also synergize pretty well with the accelerates that you've got going on here. And so the main combo here, of course, is something that we'll be talking about more in other deck decks. But the idea behind it is that Westwind Herald copies a spell from your void, or plays a spell from your void for free, and if you use Gemini Ritual on a Westwind Herald, then the Westwind Herald duplicates itself, and the new copy can also play a spell from the void for free. So you just get infinite numbers of Westwind Heralds every time you attack. It's a pretty fun deck. You can run into Channel the Tempest. You can also do Vodafcan combo, or Eileen combo. For both of those, I would recommend that you take some of the purple and blue out of the deck, and maybe even start considering going back down to 3 colors, because this kind of stuff is a little bit deeper into time and justice, and the more different influence requirements you have, the more you're trying to get those different types of influence requirements, the harder it is going to be to get to your late game, and to do the interesting greedy things that you want to do. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. I hope you guys have fun with this deck, and I will see you next time with another Eternal Brews. We might also be putting up a new basics video soon, and of course we're going to keep just putting up videos as fast as we can. Feel free to like or subscribe if you like, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.